Mexico holds a referendum to decide if the last 5 former presidents will be tried for corruption cases. In Peru, the number of injured people rises to 700 after the 6.1 earthquake registered in the Piura region. In Greece, firefighters battle to put out a forest fire in the Peloponense region that has destroyed around 20 homes and injured 8 people. Hello and welcome to TeleSUR. I'm José Daniel López in Quito, Ecuador, and this is from the south. Mexico holds a referendum this Sunday to decide if the last 5 former presidents will be tried for corruption cases. It's the first referendum at the federal level in the history of Mexico. It was requested by President Andrés Manuel López Obrador to decide whether to investigate 5 of the country's former presidents on corruption cases committed during their administrations. According to electoral authorities, more than 93 million people are registered, and at least 40% of registered Mexican voters, or about 37 million people, will need to vote for the results to be binding.
Yes, I am going to vote, of course. And what I plan to do is to take a picture with my inked finger and invite my neighbors to participate.
In Peru, the number of injured people rises to 700 after the 6.1 earthquake registered on Friday in the Piura region. The Geophysical Institute of Peru reports that at 8 a.m. local time, a new aftershock of 3.8 magnitude was registered in Piura in the north of the country, affecting around 400 houses in the province of Sullana. This last tremor was located 14 kilometers to the southwest of that province and with a depth of 35 kilometers. Specialists do not discard more replicas, although with less seismic intensity. President Pedro Castillo has arrived to the Piura region to coordinate immediate actions in order to help the earthquake's victims. He also visited a hospital in Sullana where 41 people are receiving treatment. So Castillo urged authorities to support those affected.
I have come to see the hospital of Sullana. The great problem of the hospitals is not only in Piura, it's in all Peru. And we're going to start. We have said in the message to the nation that health is our priority. We cannot move forward. We cannot start working if we do not prioritize health first. We will give money to the mayors.
Workers at the world's biggest copper mine in Chile agreed to strike after rejecting the final contract offer proposed by multinational owners BHP. The workers are asking for a one-time bonus to recognize their work during the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as education benefits for their children. Chile is the world's top producer of copper, making up 28% of global output. Union and company leaders can initiate a final with the government mediation with 5 to 10 days. The Cuban government has received a shipment of 20 tons of humanitarian aid from Bolivia to face the United States economic and commercial blockade. The Minister of the Presidency of Bolivia, Maria Nela Prada, announced that the humanitarian aid includes medical supplies and food. It was on behalf of the Bolivian people, as promise of brotherhood by President Luis Arce. Prada affirmed that the shipment seeks to confront the blockade maintained by the government of the United States. The Caribbean island received in the last few days humanitarian aid from Mexico, Russia, Nicaragua, Vietnam, and Venezuela.
We are very grateful. Bolivia has always been one of our brothers. Nothing is too little. The small details make the big things. We have also done so at a time when the Cuban people are going through a complex situation, both from the epidemiological point of view as well as from the food point of view. We have received donations from other countries. We have looked for different distribution principles and criteria. We are informing our people where the products we receive are going. They are being received with much love and gratitude, and we are sure that we will continue to be repaid and very grateful for this gesture and well. The hours of flight will not be in vain. That same warmth that you feel here, that same warmth of humanity and solidarity, and we receive it with open arms in our country.
The Bolivian Minister of the Presidency, Maria Nela Prada, has said that the shipment of food and health assistance to Cuba is based on the affection of the Bolivian people for the Cuban people.
Son 2.5 toneladas de jeringas.
There are 2.5 tons of syringes, 16.5 tons of food, and 1 ton of biosecurity material, which, as I was saying, we bring with great affection. We have approved it through a supreme decree this past weekend in the presidential cabinet. It was an initiative of our brother president of the plurinational state of Bolivia, Lucho Arce, which of course has been accompanied with all our affection and love by the entire cabinet and by all the Bolivian people who are also joining this campaign of solidarity.
Esta campaña de
In a
solidaridad.
bid to strengthen domestic production in the face of U.S. sanctions, the Venezuelan government installed the Superior Council of the Economy this Friday. Seeking import substitution, the council brings together state and private productive sectors tasked with boosting national production in a country that is heavily dependent on imports, which have been severely restricted by the aggressive U.S. blockade policy. As part of the initiative, the Center for National Productive Investment will complement the plans for economic recovery and growth, first launched in 2016.
Venezuela is a country that, despite the aggression from the United States, despite the blockade and the theft of our assets abroad, despite all of this, Venezuela is economically stable in comparison with many other countries, and we are aiming towards gradual growth. All this despite the enormous sacrifice of our people and the critical affectations brought upon them by illegal and arbitrary United States sanctions.
Meanwhile, Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez addressed the need to substitute imports in the country.
The most important impact, as we have already seen, is the economic asphyxiation in terms of foreign currency revenues for our country, which have fallen by 99%. This is a working meeting. We want to invite you to work. It is a meeting where we can reach agreements in a coordinated manner. The President spoke yesterday in his productive program about strategic import substitution. This is a call to the national productive sector. A strategic import substitution. Not everything can be substituted. You know that. We know that. And that's why we need to agree on the sectors to be substituted.
The Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro has seen an unusual cold snap, with at least 2 people reported dead and social movements warning of a potential humanitarian crisis for the homeless population. Charities and aid organizations pointed out that the cold temperatures could cause a health crisis due to the amount of homeless people and the lack of infrastructure to provide them with shelter. Volunteers say the harsh weather has hampered the distribution of supplies and hot food to those in need in a city that is used to tropical temperatures. In the United States, hundreds of activists have marched in Austin, Texas, to demand the protection of voting rights in the country. The rally concludes a 4-day march from Georgetown, Texas to Austin. The organizers say their rally's objective was to send a message to Washington, D.C. to pass the For the People Act, which is a proposed federal voting bill. If the bill is passed, it has the potential to block voting restrictions currently being considered in several states, including Texas and Georgia.
But when you look out here today and see the thousands, and you look at the diversity in this crowd, this is the America they are afraid of. This is the America that dispels the Southern strategy. Or maybe this is the America that will bring another Southern strategy, a strategy to lift all people from the bottom.
More news in a minute. Stay with us. Five villages have been evacuated and 8 people hospitalized since the fire broke out early Saturday near Patras in the Peloponense. There has been not yet an official assessment of the damage, but around 10 houses in the area of Syria have burned down, as well as farming sheds and animal stables. Ayaleje's town hall provided emergency accommodation on Saturday for people who had fled their villages.
The disaster that has happened here is tremendous, no question about that. Before the fire, this area was an exceptional green lung of the earth.
For the 5th consecutive day, firefighters battled one of the worst wildfires on Turkey's southern coast after the evacuation of dozens of villages and some hotels. 6 people have died and dozens have been taken to hospitals. An investigation has been launched to determine if some of the fires were a result of arson. Health Minister Fashed Koha said 400 people affected by the fires in Mangabat were released from hospitals and 10 were still receiving treatment. Turkey has blamed some previous forest fires on arson of outlawed Kurdish militants. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has visited the affected area. He announced that the government will cover the people's rent affected by the fire and rebuild their homes. Erdogan also said that taxes, social security and credit payments will be postponed and small businesses will be offered credit with zero interest.
Our nation should be at ease. We will not allow any of our citizens to suffer. We will cover all the damages. We cannot do anything beyond wishing the mercy of God for the lives we have lost. But we can replace everything that has burned. The burned areas cannot be used for any other purposes and will be replanted with trees, according to the 169th article of our Constitution. As a government that has increased Turkey's forest assets, of course, it is our foremost duty to reforest every burned area more than before. In addition, we try to eliminate the weakness in our firefighting fleet, thanks to our advanced helicopters and amphibious aircraft with new technology, which were very useful in recent fires. Our plane numbers have actually increased, with the planes coming from Ukraine, Russia and Azerbaijan, and at the last moment from Iran. In particular, UAVs drones provided us with great opportunities for the rapid detection of fires and the ability to control them before they grow.
In Hungary, thousands of healthcare workers and their supporters have gathered in Budapest to demand wage increases and better work conditions. The crowd, which included supporters from some of Hungary's largest trade unions, say the COVID-19 pandemic had only worsened the already precarious situation of healthcare workers, while their demands for pay hikes and decreased working hours had been ignored by the government. Meanwhile, nurses say that while some workers had received increased benefits, they were not enough to offset poor pay and intense demands arising from the pandemic.
The Hungarian state spends very little on its healthcare system, so there is a lot that has to be done. Putting the healthcare system back on its feet must be one of the most important tasks of the next administration. The government should not be in a state of war with healthcare workers, but should jointly develop a system of wages and conditions which can keep healthcare professionals and doctors in the system.
In France, police have clashed with protesters in Paris during a march against coronavirus passes that will be needed to enter restaurants and other venues. Some 3,000 security forces have been deployed around the French capital for a third weekend of protests against the pass. Burning flares and tear gas smoke could be seen at the rally, and security forces fired water cannon to disperse protesters. As a result, many people got injured. The pass requires vaccinations and a quick negative test or proof of a recent recovery from COVID-19. On the other hand, French authorities justify the implementing the health passes because of the highly contagious Delta variant is making strong inroads in the country.
I am a nurse and I've resigned because I think we mustn't be blackmailed. I also think that we mustn't be told what to do, knowing that during the first wave we've been quite mistreated. And now, suddenly we are told that if we don't get vaccinated, it is our fault that people are infected. I think it is sickening, in fact.
It's a big hindrance to freedom. It's a hindrance to freedom if now we must have a virus pass to go to the groceries, go to the cinema, enjoy life after a grueling job. Workers are poorly paid today. The virus pass is a real danger for everybody. It's really an antisocial thing. So we are here to defend ourselves against all that.
Meanwhile, in Italy, hundreds of anti-COVID vaccine demonstrators have marched through the streets of Milan to protest new restrictions on those without a green pass, proving vaccination to access for cultural and sport venues. The Italian government is still to decide on whether a green pass will become mandatory also on public transport, including trains and buses.
I don't agree with compulsory vaccination because I think people should be free to choose the therapy they undergo. For example, alternative therapies to the vaccine. There are treatments for COVID. My husband fell ill with the disease, and I treated him at home without any problem.
Health authorities say that the Delta variant is the cause of the rise of COVID-19 cases in China. The rapidly spreading Delta variant was detected at Nanjing Airport in eastern Jiangsu province in early July, when 9 cabin cleaners at an international airport tested positive for COVID-19. Since then, more than 260 infections across the country have been linked to these cases. According to the National Health Commission, the main variant circulating is the Delta one. It also notes that this resurgence could be due to the high tourist season and high passenger traffic at the airport.
First, this outbreak is caused by the important Delta variant. This Delta variant has a high viral load, is highly contagious, spreads with a high speed, and has a long recovery time.
Japan's coronavirus emergency grows as the Olympic Games continue. Authorities extended the state of emergency to 4 more areas, in addition to Olympic host Tokyo, as COVID-19 cases spike in the capital and around the country, overshadowing the Summer Games. With the Delta variant of the coronavirus at large, the nationwide count of cases topped 10,000 for the first time on Thursday.
The virus infection is spreading at a rate we have never experienced before. The main reason for this spread is the new Delta variant, which is rampant across the globe.
Senegal is now facing an explosion of COVID-19 cases due to the spread of the Delta variant. In the capital Dakar, hospital beds are full and health services are on the verge of collapse. The West African country has suffered a third wave of virus infections in recent weeks, with cases rising from a few dozens last month to about 1,700 in July.
The first campaign with Sinopharm and AstraZeneca, people still came out, but it's not like this time. Every day we reach 800, 850 people a day. At the beginning of the campaign, we were around 400, 450. We are all seeing the negative effects of this pandemic. All activities are stopped. The country's economy is affected. We count the death every day. Only the vaccine could allow us to resume our normal activities. People have to believe in it, so that we can get out of it.
There are people who are not informed, who do not believe in this disease until now. The government must do something to go to the villages, deep into the country, to raise awareness among the population in Senegal. It is important.
In Kyrgyzstan, the government has received about 226,000 doses of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine through the COVAX mechanism. Authorities announced that they expect the arrival of another batch of immunizers with more or less 2.3 million doses of AstraZeneca. Kyrgyzstan has a total of 161,000 infections from COVID-19 and more than 2,000 deaths from the disease, while some 400,000 people have already been immunized in the country. And we have more stories coming up after one last break, so stay tuned. Welcome back. Palestinians have suffered severe repression from Israeli police during protests to reject the plans to evict a number of families from their homes. The police sprayed water on protesters gathered in the neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah. This place is the scene of frequent demonstrations and clashes between Palestinian protesters and police over a court case in which a group of Israeli settlers seek to evict a number of Palestinian families from the arriving neighborhood. Palestinians and right groups say the case highlights discrimination policies that are aimed at pushing Palestinians out of Jerusalem to preserve its Jewish majority. Shawad Khalid Awad is the third youngest Palestinian to be killed by Israeli fire in the West Bank over the course of this week. He was shot during the funeral of a Palestinian boy killed by occupation forces the previous day. 20-year-old Awad received bullets to the head and stomach as Israeli troops shot at Palestinians, expressing their anger over the killing of 12-year-old Mohammed Al-Alami, who was shot by Israeli troops while traveling in a car with his father in the occupied West Bank town of Beit Unam, northwest of Hebron. At least 200 migrants have been rescued off the Libyan coast by the SOS Mediterranean humanitarian organization. The migrants, who mostly came from Syria, Eritrea, Nigeria, Cameroon, and Ghana, were rescued in 4 different operations. There were 28 women among the rescue, 2 of whom were pregnant, and 33 minors, including 2 children under the age of 5. At the moment, the migrants are on the ocean Viking vessel, waiting to find out where they will be able to disembark. Tunisian President Kais Saied has appointed a new security chief amid the political crisis in the country. Former National Security Advisor Rida Warshou-Kola was named as interim interior minister in President Said's first major appointment since he froze parliament and seized executive powers early this week, amid widespread protests and an economic crisis. The move was denounced by the country's biggest party as a coup, and clashes between protesters on both sides have erupted in recent days. Over 100,000 children are expected to suffer extreme and life-threatening malnutrition in Ethiopia's Tigray region, according to a United Nations report. 6 million inhabitants of Tigray are currently prevented from receiving humanitarian aid as shipments are blocked due to the ongoing conflict. According to the UN, intimidation, harassment, and the constant crossfire prevent aid convoys from delivering nearly 7,000 cartons of ready-to-eat food from UNICEF warehouses that could make the difference between life or death for thousands of children who are extremely malnourished.
In order to reverse this nutrition, health, water, food security catastrophe will require a massive scale up of humanitarian assistance. And that means that we must be allowed to conduct our work without hindrance. That means being able to access fuel, cash, telecommunications. It means being able to bring in the supplies that we need. And it means being able to conduct normal financial transactions, and that failing to meet these conditions could bring humanitarian assistance to a standstill.
Several hundred people have marched in Chad's capital against the ruling military junta. The opposition Transformers Party and civil society groups called the demonstration against the confiscation of power by the so-called Transitional Military Council that has ruled the country since the death of President Idris Deby in April.
A feeling of satisfaction because we were able to march without any clashes taking place. We have demonstrated, as Max Loengard said earlier, we are mature, we are capable, we are responsible for carrying out a truly peaceful march, which for once we have been allowed to do. All the Chadians who came out are demanding justice for everyone. They are calling for a sovereign and inclusive national conference, not like the dialogue that excludes the majority of Chadians. Today, we feel that the CMT wants to stay in power forever, not for 18 months, but for 36 months and maybe for another 30 years.
The Afghan government is seeking to drive back the Taliban advance as foreign troops leave. Air raids killed 65 members of the Taliban and wounded a dozen others, according to the Afghan Defense Ministry. The raids were conducted in Lashkar Gah, capital of Helmand province, in the south of the country region. The ministry also informed that over 200 Taliban fighters were killed recently and over 100 injured in operations conducted by the Afghan National Defense and Security Forces in several provinces of the country. After 20 years of fruitless intervention, the US and NATO are withdrawing troops from Afghanistan, and the Taliban has been making advances in retaking control of the nation. And today, Latin American women made history in the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games after 3 athletes won gold medals for Brazil, Ecuador, and Venezuela. Yulimar Rojas of Venezuela set a world record to win the women's triple jump gold medal. Rojas broke the Olympic record of 15.39 with her first attempt in the final. The 2-time world champion won a silver medal at the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Olympics. Meanwhile, Neisy Dahomes has become the 3rd athlete from Ecuador to win a gold medal for her country after a convincing win in the women's weightlifting, 76 kilograms. And last but not least, Rebecca Andrade won the vault final on Sunday at the Tokyo Games, bringing Brazil its first gold medal ever in women's gymnastics. And we come to the end of this news brief, but remember you can find this and many other stories in our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Thank you for watching.